Hey there, it's Pops. We're going to do this. Let's make sure I've got chat open up. You can say your hey and hellos there. Hey, let's do this Pops thing on a regular basis. All right. So, hoping that you'll enjoy this. We're going to first talk about what's happened a little bit, and we'll get into some of that, I'm sure, over the different streams and different shows that we decided to do here. Talk about why the year-long hiatus, kind of what happened here, what changes in our lives, and what's been going on in our family. And then let's talk about some pop culture stuff. Let's talk about Loki, Disney Plus's new show. It just wrapped up. 6 episodes are in the can. And then with Black Widow, of course, hitting theaters. And then a new Amazon Prime film called The Tomorrow War. I'll give you my take and thoughts on that and the reviews. And then maybe a little bit of comic book talk there at the end, CGC stuff, grading, some different things. And that kind of, in my life, it kind of fits into the first part of what I was saying earlier about what's been going on. So if you want to connect with us, you can go ahead and hit the chat. You can say, hey, I'm here, that kind of thing. At each segment, I'll kind of try to address the chat. If you want to talk about one particular topic, when I get to that section, if you want to jump in, say a few things, give me your thoughts, that kind of thing, and we'll do some of the chat stuff there. Now, first things first, obviously, I haven't been doing videos for quite a while. The Roni stuff was rough. Obviously, I work in healthcare, so life stayed busy pretty much the whole time. And one of the things I think the first, to be honest, was just the burden of just the time it took to do videos, edit, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping with the streams, we'll sit down, we'll talk for a little bit. And then over the course of the time, over the course of a few days, I'll try to maybe have some clips out of this. So maybe the Loki section be its own video, maybe the Black Widow part, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see that, and we'll see how that goes. But if nothing else, we can grow some interaction here, talk about some different things that you want to talk about, what movies, shows, pop culture stuff are you interested in, that kind of thing. And I would tell you that the other thing that happened right away was they stopped doing movie screenings. There was a lot of issues with what was going to be available for us to screen and preview. Obviously, movie theaters then shut down. TV didn't have much to offer. And we talked about the Michael Jordan documentary, which was this big, elaborate thing that kind of shook everybody to get some attention. But for the most part, things kind of came to a screeching halt. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about. So when we compound those two things together, it's kind of where I got stuck. And, we had some family meetings and some different things that were happening that's not connected to this kind of stuff. But hopefully the family came together, made some decisions. We moved several counties away to the farm, got away from city life for the most part. And I spend kind of split lives where I still work and do that kind of thing. But the family, we've got the farm life now and animals and critters and those kinds of things. I think we'll talk maybe some more about that on some of the other channels. I'd like to maybe do a What's Your Story, maybe even with the lovely first lady, let her tell her own story on why she wanted to have the farm and enjoys the farm and what she loves about it. So hopefully that can happen as well. So feel free to, chat me up. Let me know what your thoughts are on that kind of thing. And, it's interesting. I will tell you that it's definitely an interesting dichotomy of life of, the importance of things in the city versus in the country, people that are connected to different things. And of course, even things like this, where you're talking about something frivolous like entertainment, in the grand scheme of things, seems like nothing when you're in the middle of the stuff that we were going through. So, but with that, hope you can engage. Feel free to, comment, share, those kinds of things. We'll go ahead and get started and jump right into my thoughts on Loki. Before I get too much into Loki, let me just say that obviously I'm a huge Marvel MCU nerd, seen all the movies, have my own thoughts and opinions on each one. This has really made me think about, obviously with Black Widow coming to theaters, it's really made me think about which ones are actually my favorite. It's sometimes we say different things, but I gave some thoughts like, man, I really haven't rewatched this one. I really haven't rewatched that one. So really kind of made me think about that. But I think that we're now seeing a completely different tone and approach with the new TV shows and the new film. And I think this is a interesting conversation piece. Maybe you enjoy them, maybe you don't. Maybe you'll like my take, maybe you won't. But we will definitely begin to talk about I don't know what you think. What you think about the old Loki, who basically was through our episodes and want to talk about those little by little. So episode 1 kicks off, and it was written by Michael Waldron, who is the creator for Rick and Morty. And if you've watched Rick and Morty, it has a very type of tone, a lot of comedy, those kinds of things. I also think the episode 1, where you see Loki at the end of the Avengers film, he's lost the battle in New York. They give it some of these highlights. He touches that cube, and then he's boom, gone. He's in the desert. And it takes no time at all for the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, to best him. Basically, he's humiliated right from the get-go. They're stripping him down, telling him the rules. You have this funny joke about everything you say, and the little dot matrix printers printing it out. Here, sign here. What? This is ridiculous. This is absurd. And sign again. But sadly, all of that was ruined in the trailer. So I wish I could tell you that I even loved that joke, but it kind of fell to the wayside. But it moves quickly, and you see he's stripped of his Asgardian costume. He's humiliated over again. He has to stare up at a judge. They have all these different rules, but he's still kind of got that bite and that anger that we knew as Loki. So it moves a little bit, and you see different things, and some things are really interesting that they're talked about, and they don't ever matter. And we'll kind of come back on that several episodes along, and you'll see there's things that we like, the internet goes crazy over every little thing, every little Easter egg. There's so many views to be had. They tell you, I found an Easter egg, and half the time they did not find anything. Or they gave you fan service, gave you a little nugget of something that might be in the decades old comic books, but it's irrelevant to the show. And that's the thing you have to remember about Loki. Loki was the first villain in Avengers #1. So he dates back to the 1960s. So there's a lot of material they could pull from, and this is what we got. So that's how things start out. You see the flashback or flash to the sequence with their ominous music and all of that, where this variant has attacked this, and this little girl's there with her little candy bar, and there's comments made about some different things. But we're 10, 12 minutes into this, and they zap the one guy who doesn't have a ticket. We're making jokes about that. You see a lot of talking, a lot of this, a lot of that. We're like 30 minutes into this episode before we get to Mobius, who's played by Owen Wilson, talking to Loki, trying to get him to, come to some sort of analysis to make him realize he's the monster. And he talks about being D.B. Cooper and all that. They start showing him these videos. And then ultimately, of course, Mobius is pulled away and Loki escapes. There's just more of a comedic scene, not really a fight scene, where he takes down the other TVA guy, lady, and that's Hunter B-15. Hunter B-15's taken down, but Loki goes back to the room to watch these videos, because when he goes in the office, he realizes Infinity Stones don't matter here. Kind of creates this almost paradox to all these movies we've been watching. Like, okay, well, none of this really matters. TVA is more powerful than all that. They've got him on his little choke collar to prevent him having any powers. So that's not going to get him anywhere. So he basically concedes, goes back, watches these clips, sees his mom dies, relationships and whatever. And then we get, crying Loki. And, again, I want to make sure I'm really clear here with, not very long. It's very frustrating. So, it's episode 1 just kind of wraps up. We see that there's a shadowy figure and that kind of thing, and that's where we're at. But Loki's like going to play along. He's going to pretend that he's going to cooperate, right? Suddenly he's going to be Ragnarok Loki. He's going to be this nice, peaceful, kind guy. He's going to play along, and I have a hard time with that, to be honest. So, but okay, let's move on. So the second writer is actually a Bones writer. Her name is Alyssa Karasik. And we have the Renaissance Festival attack in the 1980s. We see another Hunter C-20. And then she's attacking their own TVA. Loki's pretending to be an advisor, but he's really just stalling. So you see all of this stuff's progressing. And we end up about, another 30 minutes into this, when basically nothing's gotten done. He's tried to dupe them, pretend that he's somebody. They go back to the library. They're talking about things. He thinks he figured out how the variant moves around. They go to Pompeii because the variant can hide there. And through all of this, we end up going to where the variant's going to be. And we set up a futuristic place, the Roxcart, which is basically like Amazon meets Walmart in the MCU, in the Marvel Comics universe. You're going to have this big fight scene in reveal with the Loki, who turns out to be Lady Loki, right? So we see interesting parts here where Loki has magic, but doesn't use magic. Like, he has magic to dry himself when he goes into the little store, but he doesn't use any magic to fight how Lady Loki's possessed Randy and this big guy, and he doesn't create multiple versions of himself, which he talked about. He doesn't do any of his different illusions that he's talked about. He doesn't really do anything. He uses like his magic to get a vacuum cleaner to hit the guy. I mean, it's just, anyway. He goes through the little garage door opener portal with Lady Loki, and we get to episode 3, which is written, to me, the worst episode in the entire series at this point, by Basha K. Ali, which you'll hear me talk about because she's in charge of Miss Marvel, which is a new series with the new Pakistani Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. And this is an episode where basically a lot of walking, a lot of talking, and they're on this planet. They're trapped there. They've got their little he's got the time device. She's blaming him for getting them there, which I think is weird because it's her time device. So it's her pre-programmed thing. Like, I'm not sure why he would know which button to push, which natural disaster to go hide in. He chose the wrong one in her mind. So he's immediately, again, he's submissive. He's not in his costume. She looks like Loki, but he doesn't look like Loki. And there's a lot of walking and talking, some gags that, I don't know. I didn't really care for any of the gags. We did get our first real pause where I had this kind of thing where I watched this show and I watched it again for you guys. And yeah, it was a little rough. So one of my moments that I've gone back to is, let me see if I can get this to play right. I just couldn't believe it. I had my, different moments where I couldn't do it. It was really rough. So this was one of. Oh yeah. That's it. He's such a wuss following her around, and it doesn't make any sense. So this isn't the Loki that attacked New York like 2 minutes ago. This is this guy. Look, watch this. You're so weird. You're so weird. When would Loki ever say you're so weird? When? There's another clip I didn't get it in time for this where he says you're so awesome, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is not the Loki that I signed up for. What am I watching here? Maybe you love the show. You can tell me what you think. I don't know. I'm missing something because it doesn't get any better, and really nothing happens because they're still trapped on the planet. They decide to go on this train, and Loki can't even best a couple guard trains. This is a guy who is, half Frost Giant, raised by Asgardians. Actually, he is Frost Giant, and raised by the Asgardians. He, fought with Thor and Hulk, all these different things, and then suddenly 2 guards on a train. He's having a hard time besting, and they play it up like he was drinking and that kind of thing. But the scene only exists for one reason, and I don't know if you knew this or not. The director of the show, Kate Herron, or Haran, sorry if I pronounce her name wrong, she admitted that the entire purpose of Loki, this is her entire premise. Let me make sure I'll pull the story up for you, because I don't want you to think that I am coming up with this on my own, because this is it. She confirms that her focus was to acknowledge that Loki is bisexual. Here's the little scene that they are referring to where this moment happens. And it's just this little side comment right here. You can see must have been some princesses or perhaps another prince. And he's like, yeah, a little bit of both. I spoke to you the same for you. That's it. That's what this was about. That was her priority, right? She says, from the moment I joined Loki, it was very important for me and my goal to acknowledge Loki was bisexual. It is in part of who he is and who I am too. I know this is a small step, but I'm happy. And heart is so full to say that this is now canon. And she tweeted this. This is what she tweeted. You got that? This is who I am. This is where we are. She's not interested in telling a good story about Loki. She wasn't interested in taking on this project to contribute something to the MCU, expand the MCU. And I'm sure that they gave her instructions. She's got marching orders. Trust me. Some of the directors that have quit different films over the years have told us they have marching orders. We know exactly why they've quit in some of these situations. But you've got to be kidding me. She's more interested in self-inserting herself than she is in producing good content, right? She sees herself in this now. Like, she couldn't connect to Loki. She couldn't relate to Loki until she could make part of her part of him. So, and I assume Lady Loki's the same, right? They're the same character, just a different version in these different timelines and variants and all that. So that's basically the entire. We do learn in episode 3 that the TVA, they're all variants. That's it. It's just an aside comment. If you're not paying close enough attention, you easily could have missed either of those two little factoids. And we quickly move on to episode 4, which is written by Eric Martin. Now, I kid you not, I've not seen anything from Eric Martin. Eric Martin's big contribution, as I can tell, is that he was a production assistant. You know somebody? Yep, I know the people at Rick and Morty. That's who I worked on. Worked on Rick and Morty. Michael Aldrin's on here. He's doing Loki. He got me a gig to write episode 4. And sorry, Eric, this is a waste of freaking time. Is what this was. So we flash back to a young, no, not younger, really. It's just a different version of when she was taken. Renslayer is going to, it's a younger version in a flashback of when Renslayer, who was just an agent at the time, kidnaps Sylvie when she was a child, and because she somehow created her Nexus event or whatever she's done. That never gets addressed. We never really understand what it is about her, other than maybe she's teaching herself magic. That's alluded to in the series. She's so clever. And it's like at the 12-minute mark of this episode, because it's just chaos, right? So we cut to the real time where all this is where the "you're amazing" part comes, because they're trying to get off the purple planet. They finally get rescued by the TVA because all the little gadget, the little remote control's dead. And I kid you not, they're back and forth. Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston's Loki is, "You're a bad friend. You're a bad friend. This is what's in our Marvel show. You're a bad friend." And then they put him in timeout. His timeout is even more ridiculous. His timeout is to be put into a little time cell where he has to relive this moment where he accidentally, no, Loki doesn't do anything on accident. Everything is on purpose, right? No, Loki cut the hair off of Lady Sif. He's now put in a time cell, has to relive this moment where she punches him in the face, kicks him in the genitals over and over and over again. So literally the metaphor of the female beating the man takes like literal representation in this show. This is what's passing as good content. Is it funny maybe for, like, I don't know, first time, second time? Sure, but we all get what's really happening here. But it just keeps going. So they cut back. We're 22 minutes into this or so. Loki's basically in love, right? He's just enamored with her. Like, what's happened? Has she been zapped with a little, their little sticks? Has she been pruned? So that's going on. And then Loki says, takes a moment here to work with Mobius about moving forward and says, "Will you take a word of a friend?" It's this weird. They've known people for what, like a day? The day before he's destroying New York. 2 days? Like, how? I wish I could understand the freaking timeline here. It's so absurd and so stupid. Like, let's just assume a couple days ago, this guy is ripping the eye out of somebody, like with a grin on it. He's attacking and fighting Captain Marvel, ready to massacre a whole bunch of Germans. He's leading an attack on New York City to kill, I don't know how many people. He murdered, obviously, 80 people. I think it's referenced in Avengers when he steals the Tesseract. This guy's a monster. He gets the Tesseract to get away. Or a couple episodes in, a few hours, maybe a day or two, and suddenly he's friends with Mobius. He's in love with this other chick. He's like a U-Haul lesbian. He flipped on a dime at like date number 2, ready to move in with everybody else. Like, this guy's emotions. Like, I don't understand why you're supposed to convince me that he watched some video of his mom, starts crying and weeping, and sees some flashbacks to the rest of part of what his life could have been, and suddenly he's transformed. Like, that's what it took, a therapy session. We should have sat this guy down for like 5 minutes and shown him what his future could have been, and we wouldn't have had all this stuff with New York. Like, that's what, I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry if you're getting this and you're loving this. I've just been in shock. I really have. I couldn't believe how boring these episodes. Nothing's happening. You know, you got 20, 30 minutes of screen time and nothing's happening. Like, there's no fight scene. There's no action. There's nothing really transpiring. So, all right, let me get back on track going through all of this, because there's all of this happening. They're going to get pruned, and they go see the timekeepers. And the timekeeper scene, it was weird because to the audience, to me, it was really clear they're not real. But a fight scene breaks out because the one agent lets them go, and they're fighting for a minute. Of course, Lady Loki is way more powerful than Loki, of course. So she's got girl power, man. She's tearing it up. And then she throws her sword and cuts its head off, and it's a robot. And he's trying to be all sweet to her again. He's all got his U-Haul packed and ready to move in. And then he gets pruned from behind. So he dies, at least on the surface. You think he dies. A few minutes ago, before they took him to the timekeepers, when Mobius shows up with Loki, he gets confronted, and of course Mobius gets pruned. So Mobius is pruned, Loki is pruned. You're supposed to be like, oh. And then Lady Loki has got her little wand on Renslayer after a quick little fight. And that's where the episode 4 ends. And we go into number 5, who's written by another staff writer at Rick and Morty, because that seems to be who we stole all of our talent from for the MCU. Not tons of experience writing, no real superhero. And the translation of humor from Rick and Morty, whatever they were going for, sure didn't arrive in Loki, by the way. Maybe I'm just being too critical, because I don't understand this. This is all this twisty-turny stuff, because our little credit scene shows Loki waking up. He's pruned, but he wakes up, he's on a planet, and he sees other Lokis. So we're 4 episodes in. We finally see little Loki, alligator Loki, cosplay Loki, and black Loki. That's what we see. Right? And fans are more excited about that than they have been the whole show. Imagine that, right? A little clip at the end of episode 4 has more internet buzz from more people, in my opinion. All people were talking about is who these Lokis were. We're sick of our Loki. Our Loki's walking around like a UPS man. He's not even dressed for the job anymore. Lady Loki's at least dressed like the character. His costume is gone. It's been gone for hours. We don't even know how long he'll be out of costume, right? So it moves along. We have Loki's running around. And then, of course, Renslayer is being held with a little stick from Lady Loki. And those by the way, if you watch this again and you go from the end of episode 4 into the beginning of episode 5, it's the worst edit of all of them, because the scene was originally where the timekeepers are, and then it's suddenly in the hallway of the TVA. So they can blame the Roni all they want, but that was just awful. I don't know how that got through. They had to have not realized they made that mistake, and then it went through, and there was just no way to get everybody back together again, because it's absurd is what it is. It's freaking absurd. So, okay, where are we at? We're in episode 5. We're on the land of Lokis. Renslayer's just delaying things, making up a story about a ship, all sorts of nonsense. The agents are coming. They basically got Lady Loki, Sylvie's trapped, so she self-prunes. That's what you do. You've done all this, and you're just going to self-prune. You don't know where they go. You don't know. How would she know what's going to happen to her? Like, that's the solution? You've lost your fight. You're not going to try to break out of jail again. You're just going to self-prune. Like, there's no evidence that there's anything after the self-pruning. It's so dumb. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, folks, because you've sat there and listened to talky, plenty of time to explain how some of this crap works, but nope, we just do things and we go on, and you're supposed to just take it and follow it, because there's a bunch of little Lokis to see, and they're going to talk, and then we're going to see other Lokis break in, and a fight's going to break out. But what does our Loki do? What does UPS Loki do? He tiptoes around the fight. Yeah, Loki, who went fisticuffs with Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. He was he given Black Widow what's for, had a little fight that he lost with Hulk. I mean, this is insane. And he's like, oh, I'm going to tiptoe around the action while Alligator Loki eats the hand off the one guy. And we're all supposed to be, all right, whatever. All right. So listen, other than cosplay Loki, it just stunk. because we're supposed to believe like Kid Loki, the child Loki, he's the toughest one of all of them because he actually killed Thor. Like he killed them. So that's why he's in this world, because he's a variant. You're not allowed to kill him. That wasn't what the Loki's purposes are. And Richard E. Grant, who plays the cosplay Loki, the guy with the bright green yellow, he's got the horns, the whole 1960s cliche costume. He's the only one worth watching, in my opinion. It was fantastic because he actually like uses magic, and they're all like, oh my gosh, how can he do that? How can he use magic? Well, first, if you're on a planet, you should have tested out if you can use magic. In fact, they did 5 minutes ago because he conjured a blanket so he could snuggle with Sylvie. That's right. That's right. The guy plucking the eye out of somebody 5 minutes ago to take over New York, murdering I don't know how many millions of people if he could, is ready to snuggle with a different version of himself that he's met like 2 minutes ago. And all they do is fight. He treats him like crap like every 5 minutes. There's no kind words coming out of this woman. She's leading the show. She's barking orders. She's blaming things. They fight. She's better than him. It's just a mess. Show is a mess. Okay. Let's see. They cuddle under their blanket. They have to go face the purple cloud monster, which is called Elias, which actually does exist in the comic book. I don't remember ever reading that, but it's there. So they do all of that. Right. So Richard E. Grant cosplay Loki does his magic and distracts the monster. She is going to use her. She's supposed to be able to touch to enchant someone. Like she can control you if she touches you. But she's going to get with Loki. They're going to hold hands. She's going to touch the purple cloud monster to control it, to open it up, and we're going to see something that's on the other side because it's protecting something else. That's literally the big scheme of the Loki at this point. And that's what happens, and we see Hogwarts on the other side, basically the old castle. And we get to the final episode of the season. Now, I will say this about that's probably the best episode of the show, but really it's only after the Lokis fought and you get into this little sequence where cosplay Loki is at least interesting. That's really the best sequence of the entire show. There's a couple fight scenes that are at least tolerable, but they're so few and far between. Fight scenes will last like 2 minutes, and they're so cliched because she is so powerful and he is not. Final episode, they're co-written. Michael Waldron and Eric Martin, this talented Rick and Morty team, send us through Hogwarts after our little Winnie spinny, universes form or don't form. We have to listen to Greta Thunberg and other quotes from people that actually matter. And we get to go to Hogwarts because literally that's how I felt. Like I was going in with the big statues. And I was waiting for Dumbledore, to welcome the Lokis. And literally for like 30 minutes, nothing really happens. There's a lot of talking. They finally meet the guy on an elevator. He opens the elevator and he's standing there. That's it. We're just going to go ahead and jump to. By the way, there's not a lot of attacking him. There's no sense of surprise. There's no plans. They're not really wanting to do anything about this guy, the He Who Remains, right? So I'll get to more about He Who Remains, who's basically Kang or Immortus, depending on how you want to look at his timeline. He's this really big bad villain. He's behind all this because in the future, he's the genius that figures out how to travel and control a timeline. So in a world where there could be infinite timelines and timelines and timelines, the versions of him, they collude to get together. But eventually you get an evil one. And Kang the Conqueror wants to destroy the other ones. So that's how he decides they're going to take control of things, and he's going to control the timeline. That's why there's no free will. You don't have any choices. The timeline is set, and this guy controls everything that's happening because if it gets out of control, it will all turn into a mess. We'll end up back in this mess where we have a big fight and a war or whatever. So we all know now that none of this mattered. The MCU didn't matter because it was all pre-programmed on the timeline, and that no one can handle this guy. He can only handle himself. He's so arrogant and such an authoritarian. Kang can only battle himself. There's no free will in the universe because Kang controls everything. Up until this moment, he's given the Lokis a choice whether they want to run things or not. That's literally where we're at. Lokis, do you want to run things or not? That's literally the control of the whole episode. Of course, Sylvie and Loki have to have a fight scene. He loves her, but she kisses him and then throws him through the little doorway. He's back at the TVA. God, there's nonsense at the TVA. All the TVA was a bunch of nonsense because in episode 5, Mobius He pruned himself, but he ended up on the planet too. So everybody ends up on the planet, but he somehow found a car that was running, found Sylvie, and then drove to the Lokis. We have no idea how any of this was supposed to be happening. And then at this point, before the big fight scene of the purple monster, because he has so much faith in the Lokis, he decides to use the little temp pad and go back to the TVA. He shows up, but loses a fight to the woman. Then she uses the temp pad and she leaves. The big hunter, B-15, she's figured out a little bit of this nonsense. She's been on some of this stuff too. But we leave all of that unresolved. We get to this thing with Kang. Sylvie gets rid of Loki, kills Kang. So here comes the war. All the chaos breaks out. Loki looks. No one recognizes him. He sees the big Kang the Conqueror. That's how it ends. Season 1's over. Done. And the out scene is nothing interesting. It's just a stamp that says Season 2's coming. That's what y'all get. That's Loki. There's people on the internet telling you how great this show is. I've heard people giving this show like these incredible reviews and how great this show is. I'm like, what show are you watching? This show is so boring. This is insane. Insane. I couldn't believe this. These creators are just terrible. They're just terrible. And they are so full of themselves. So this guy, I'm going to show you this. Let's see. I don't want that one. I want to share screen. Yeah, let me share this. This is one of the. This is Eric Martin. No experience, Eric Martin. Right, this is him right here. This is them praising one another. This is how their Twitters look. So if you go to their Twitter, you can follow all these nonsensical things they say back and forth. These murderer rows of writers. First off, it didn't even sound like anybody had a clue what the other ones are doing because there's so many contradictions between what happens in one episode versus another that I'm not sure I can believe that you have a clue to what you're doing. Let me make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, well, it's still not very big, is it? Anyway, sorry about that. Take my word. I'll read that to you if you want. So anyway, this is how all of their different tweets are. They talk about how many hours of footage Loki had been on screen, and it was so challenging to figure out how to adapt that. And I'm like, what did you do? He's not even the same character. He's a UPS guy walking around after you took off he doesn't have his costume. He doesn't have powers. She's in charge. There's a scene. Oh, wait, I'm going to go back to that. So that's a scene in the end of episode 5. We're going to attack the purple monster, the cloud monster from Lost. He's purple in Loki, right? We have to have colors because that's how we do things. And he actually stands behind her. That's how wussy Loki has become. He stands behind little girl Loki to face the purple monster, which we don't really totally understand how on earth he's able to do all of that. That's what he does. So, by the way, I want to understand how they can get away with making so many like absurd changes to their universe. Let's just be honest. They don't really care, right? That's how I feel. I feel like Disney Marvel walks in the room and says, all right, I need you to introduce Lady Loki, timelines. We're going to set up Kang, but we're not going to call him Kang. He's never called Kang. He's just the guy who remains, which makes him more like a Mortis because a Mortis is the one in the comic books that's been around for millions of years. So that's it. These are your things. And what the rest of you do, we're not going to police anything of what you do. We're not going to pay any attention to what you do. Absolutely. I don't know. Okay. Let me see here. Comments. Don't see anything here. All right. Don't see any comments. Going to let you know if maybe you disagree with me. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I'm in shock that they're going to do a season 2. I'm shocked that there's not anything really set up that makes sense going to Doctor Strange, because at least that's the next big version of this stuff. And I wanted to go back because the one guy, make sure I got this right, because I'm pretty sure it's Rick and Morty guy. Yep. Michael Waldron is writing Doctor Strange. So Basha K. Ali is doing Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and Michael Waldron is doing Doctor Strange 2. So after seeing this show, maybe you love it, or maybe you're like me, where not so much. You might have some reservations about where they're going with your beloved MCU, because I do. So, all right. I'm going to change gears and talk about Black Widow and the first Marvel movie in a minute. So we've had a chance to see what's been going on with the MCU. And I tell you, it's been a little rough waiting this long for a movie that should have happened back when Captain Marvel happened or sooner. There's a gender guilt in Hollywood where they feel like all of the Me Too, Harvey Weinstein, Time's Up sexual abuse stuff that's come forth, what monsters some of these people are. And by the way, they're criminals. This isn't like just some random sexual harassment accusations. We're talking about like actual violent crime. They should have called the cops on these people years ago when this stuff happened. But Hollywood isn't even, at least on the surface, not really policing a lot of this anymore, but they have definitely transferred the ownership to us, the audience. We're to blame for the way that women have been treated, women not being hired, women not being cast, women not getting paid. It's somehow the audience's fault, right? Now we make new films like Birds of Prey, and we're told, well, you may not like it. I know we're making a lot of changes. It's a girl-only film. Remember Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters with all the women cast? And we're like, oh, this doesn't look like Ghostbusters. Are you sure this is Ghostbusters? Is it connected to Ghostbusters? No. It's all new stuff. And if you don't like that, you're attacked. So you don't go see it, then you're the problem because it doesn't make any money. So we're in this mess, this horrible cycle. Well, Black Widow is the version of this for the MCU. A film that should have taken place back before Black Panther and all that. And they could have had a Hawkeye, Black Widow film. We could have a spy film. This Budapest thing's been set up for years. But instead, we get this nonsense. We get this version of a Marvel film that is basically a JV version of Winter Soldier, in my opinion. I feel like this is middle school, and the writers are so bad, and the director is so bad. She has no experience. That I understand when I say no experience, I'm being somewhat hyperbolic, but you have to understand this is the biggest of leagues. This is the NBA player getting drafted out of high school. They've done some stuff. We know what they're capable of doing, but they're not at the pinnacle and top. This is not a Joss Whedon, Jon Favreau, the Russo brothers, Ryan Coogler. No, this is a disaster. Let me show you. Let me show you the picture of this set photo. I couldn't believe. See, did I get it? Yeah, there she is. Let me do the whole. Let me do this whole screen real quick. I couldn't believe the shot of her. Is it upright? No, it is not. All right. Sorry, folks. There we go. I see now. This is the set photo. This is our set photo. This is our Black Widow on set, right? So we have our ladies, because let's be honest, this is barely the Black Widow that we know from the earlier movies. This is hardly the Black Widow from the other movies. This movie is mostly about her, Florence Pugh's version, right? So Yelena, and then of course poor David Harbour. Oh, I don't know how he took this role. This is nuts. So we're 23 films into this. We finally get this one, and then we get this crazy lady. She's hired out of nowhere to do this film, and it's so all right. So let's talk about the film for a minute. The film, at least the film starts off with some positive. It gives you false hope, is what it does, in my opinion. It seems like I don't know. I feel like it seems like it's going to be the spy movie we want it to be, but it's not going to be the spy movie that we want it to be. And there's tons of plot holes after this whole Cold War scene where David Harbour is fantastic. The girls are doing it. I don't understand why Scarlett Johansson's teen girl, like she looks like a little boy. And I don't know. There's so many issues with this part of it because it's contradicted later. So you have hope when it starts. And then we fast forward to, again, Scarlet Witch is irrelevant and all this. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said all that. Black Widow is on the run because it's after Civil War. So we're flashing back in the MCU, and we're supposed to be able to keep track of what's happening. She's got this really friendly arms dealer, this really friendly guy who basically gets stuff for her. I don't know why she needs all that help, but evidently she does. Maybe it's because she's on the run and S.H.I.E.L.D. has shut off all of her resources or something. Then she's sucked back into this because the sister has sent her this little package with no instructions whatsoever. The assumption, of course, is that the Avengers will come. Here's all these vials of something, and the Taskmaster shows up. The Taskmaster is a villain. Now, let me say this. Taskmaster is a really cool villain in the comic books. I was so sucked into the Avengers as a kid. Actually, it's totally in the wheelhouse of when I was collecting comic books as a kid. It was one of my favorite times, and Taskmaster was introduced. He was so cool. He was interesting. He could mimic the different heroes. He could be successful taking them down. So much promise here. Instead, it become like a character who has like a weird cosplay costume and blow stuff up. There's no dialogue. We don't really understand exactly what's going on. So just go get these vials. So you have a cat and mouse chase thing. Yelena shows up. They start fighting. She had stabbed someone to get these things, and that scene didn't make a lot of sense to me. They're on a motorcycle. All these different things are happening, and it's basically we've got to figure out this red room. These vials will free the other widows from the brainwashing of the red room. Well, where's the red room? Nobody knows where the red room is. Okay, so we're going to go and break out David Harbour's Red Guardian. Now, Red Guardian dates back a really long time to the 1960s, and his character was, I believe, a love interest of Black Widow, not this crazy knockoff version of Captain America who's also a dope. He was a very viable character, being able to hold his own against Captain America, not, I don't know, it's just a joke. Anyway, the prison scene, it's just such a mess. Like, no one knows what's going on. He's running around. The girls are the only one that know anything. You have the terrible, I don't know if I want to play the clip because I'm afraid it'll be taken down. There's the clip where he doesn't know why they're not talking to him, so he's making some sort of like period joke. But they're like, well, no, we don't have a uterus and stuff. It was ripped out of us. It was so cringy. And I couldn't believe someone laughed. And it was just like, this is so bad. And it is so bad. Like, I don't know what to say. I wish I could tell you, but I know it's this lady's fault. That's what I know right there, that lady. She's the reason. So Black Widow moves along. So the first part's a little bit of spy stuff that was not terrible. The family stuff at least seems like it was better made. It was filmed better, like made more sense in the way they're putting the story together. But that's when we get into our massive number of contradictions with we got the Red Guardian out, but he doesn't know where the Red Room is. But then Melina, who is the fake mom, because they're not really blood related, they're just a fake Soviet family. She knows, but then she's actually a mastermind in all this. So she's kind of to the blame, but everybody just kind of skirts over that fact, by the way. We just keep moving on with this story because we got to get to the real big bad guy who's basically just this cliche Russian guy whose daughter was the target of the Budapest hit with Black Widow, and that's allegedly the blood on her ledger from all before. It's such a letdown to something that's been set up for so long ago. I was so disappointed because I thought there was such an interesting element to the Black Widow lore that they were going for in the MCU. Instead, and then the last third of the movie is just off the chart cliche MCU blowing stuff up, Fast and Furious style insanity. Like, it makes no sense. The Red Room floats like a fortress. When they bring the thing down, pieces of it are falling. I guess in slow motion because everybody has time to jump on pieces and all of this. And I want to point out one of the biggest problems for me watching this film is that, yeah, it's a superhero movie. Got it. But Black Widow is not a super soldier. Black Widow is a human being and should be getting hurt along the way. And that is never really happening. And I could not believe how badly that was done. It was just, I don't know. It was terrible. It was terrible in my opinion. Anyway, then we get through a couple of the other issues, and I want to really kind of get to like the Taskmaster. So let me go back to that. So the Taskmaster, let's see here. Let's do this one here. Show you the Taskmaster so you understand. Yeah. Nope. That's the one I want to share. Why won't I stay there? Okay, let's try that again. Okay, I see Chrome. Got it. There we go. Got it. Okay. All right, so Taskmaster. That's what, and they refer to him as a he. And I know I'm spoiling this movie for you if you haven't seen it, but this is nuts. They're going through all the stuff, and the actress is revealing that at the very end of the movie, she gets to reveal who she is. She gets to tell you her little story. She's talking in this article about her NDA, and she is just so excited about it. She's so excited. Her mom didn't know, and then she comes out, and this is what she looks like when she takes it off. Okay, just want you to see. This is what we're talking about, right? Okay, now take a look at that picture. Take a look at this picture, right? A little hard to tell, maybe. Let me see if there's another photo in the other one. Don't think so, but yeah, here's one. Let's try this one and show you. Stop this one. Let me share this one and this one. Yeah. Yeah. Did that look like the other picture? You see the shoulders, the chest, the walk. It was obviously, and it's been revealed, they used a male stunt double. So our big feminist twist, our big female movie, are just a bunch of hypocrites where they're making this crap up as they go along, and it's just so contrived that it doesn't make sense. Like there's a comic book that they just did a few years ago where Taskmaster is a woman, but it's not something that is sort of like comic book lore, and that's something that we should be just so enthralled with and enamored. How did it get to the screen so fast? It's not even a character that's been set up. Anyway, all right, let me wrap this up because the Black Widow stuff for me, I actually almost laughed out loud. I may have laughed out loud because the Black Widow can't attack this Russian oligarch, can't attack this Red Room guy because of his pheromones. Yep, he's drugged too, and it won't work. Can't do it. So she has this little flashback sequence, and it's about severing the nerve. So she's trying to tell him to punch her in the face. And I'm not sure punching in the face severs a nerve, but that's what the premise was. It doesn't work. So she slams her face on the desk, and that works. She beats the guy up, and later she resets her nose. I kid you not. This is the Black Widow movie. This is what we got. Oh, aren't you happy the MCU is back? Aren't you happy that this is the phase of stuff that we've got now? I was pretty disgusted over some of the ridiculousness of all of this because they've tried to play this up as though it's a bigger deal in some ways. The director in particular, because she'll talk about the women getting their due, right? So this is that article that I had up a minute ago. We come in here and read you this nonsense. I did not see. Come on. Yeah, I know the story continues. Where is her quote? I want to read it directly from no, I got it in this article. No, This is for the franchise. Wrong quote. Yeah. Okay. For a franchise that long resisted hiring directors who were not white males, and it talks about Taika Waititi, and then it talks about bringing her in. And it's like, I think this is a chance for women to kind of kick the door down and hold on for other women to come through. Okay, let me stop for a second. This lady, this premise is a bold-faced lie. Bold-faced lie. Okay. Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman, was hired for Thor: The Dark World, which was a Phase 2 movie years ago, and she quit because the script was so bad. There have been women that have been brought in. There have been women that have been considered. There have been women, a woman have been hired. They're not kicking the door in now. They're just trying to tell us all this. They make this woman-only movie because David Harbour's Red Guardian is a joke. He can't. After that first opening scene, he's completely a buffoon. He can't fight regular guards. He's never using his super soldier serum powers. He's just a moron. He goes around. It's like his big joke is about how fat he is. He can get in his suit and does Captain America talk about me and stupid things like that. He's not even a good superhero villain or anything at this point. It's so terrible. So we go through all of this, and what do we get? We get just a cheesy end where everyone just goes their own way. No one's going to see each other again because we know that Black Widow dies at the end of Endgame. So you fast forward to a tombstone shot, and the stupid character played by the Seinfeld Dreyfus, she walks up, wants to offer her a job. So we're presuming that Yelena has been an assassin. So much for redemption, so much for changing her life or going a different path. She was freed from the Black Widow's control of the Red Room and allegedly was going to go out in the world and free the widows. And she's basically just another assassin who needs to work for the worst people that are out there. So I don't know. Again, you have people who are giving this movie all of this praise, all of this love, and I'm just not. I know I'm not seeing it, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. So, tell me I'm crazy. Tell me what you think. I couldn't believe that they're expecting us to take all of this as though it's legit. Let me see. This is a reviewer, Eric Francisco. By the way, the Inverse is a terrible website. My goodness. You should be ashamed of yourself, Eric. You wrote, Black Widow delivers some of the strongest Marvel movie fight choreography yet. This is the first time in a long time a superhero looks like they're actually getting hurt. Are you kidding me? She falls over and over again. Her arms would be separated. She'd have broken bones. She's human. She's not even a super soldier. At least the Red Guardian character, we can make that connection. But the other three characters, Yelena, Melina, and Natasha, they're bouncing around like crazy. They're fighting things. They're falling from the fortress in the sky during the crash scene. No one gets hurt. Nothing ever happens. There's hardly any smudge of makeup. It's so insane. Like, Cap falls in a scene when he's going to fight himself, and he gets up slow during the fall, and then they fight and nearly, beat the breath out of one another. So we're trying to pretend that the characters are not getting hurt. They're always getting hurt. The whole point is it adds some believability and reality. There's not an ounce of anything redemptive about this movie. It makes Natasha so much worse. Scarlett Johansson should sue. They made her character worse, not better, by giving her own movie. It's obviously about the Yelena character being the next widow or whatever version that will be, because she's sent out to do this horrible deed now. I don't know. It's all about connecting dots in their MCU. Again, they were given marching orders. I need you to do this, this, and this. And that's what you're allowed to do. Go out there and do whatever garbage you want to do. All right, whatever. Let's move on. I don't think there's any chats to respond to or comments at this point. So I want to go ahead and let me get to Tomorrow War. Tomorrow War is an Amazon Prime film. And I am not going to pretend to you that Tomorrow War is some great film or anything like that, because that's not true. But I want to be honest, man. Some of these critics, they are terrible, man. These critics don't even Look, there's been a long. I go to a screening. I've been to screenings, and sometimes you just don't fit in. You learn real quick you're not going to fit in, right? I remember I sat down at a screening of Lucy one time, and I had my son with me, Jake, because we had seen it, and we both were like, "This movie's. I don't understand what's happening. This movie's turned into a mess." So I went to the next screening, and I believe it was Civil War, but it was definitely a Marvel film. There's more people there, and the guy next to us wanted to strike up conversation about how much he loved Lucy, and we sat there just like, "Oh my gosh, he's part of the problem. He's part of the reason that we have these crappy films." All right, so Tomorrow War. So Tomorrow War, the problem with the critics is they're not always attacking the film for the right reason. Right? So if you want to see Tomorrow War, I won't really spoil it too much because it's so convoluted. We could spend 2 hours talking about Tomorrow War, but it's 3 films, right? The opening film has to do with Chris Pratt's character. He was a soldier. Now he's a school teacher, kind of down on his luck. The people from the future come back because they need more soldiers to fight these aliens that have shown up. And the first part of the movie is like a video game. It's like if you were going to stand and ride, or like a theme park, right? You're going to stand in line to ride a ride. They made a ride out of this. This is what it'd be like. You're zapped to the future. You're going to shoot aliens. You're inside the video game. They got the normies that are sucked up in all this, so they don't last long. First part of the movie, not so bad. But then there's this hard transition, and we move again. And you have this middle. So it's all science talk. It's more drama, character development, all that. Then you have the action sequence that comes along, and it's more like alien sci-fi stuff. Kind of hit a lot of cliches, a lot of those kinds of things, and then go to the third act. So again, the hard stops, 3 separate movies, hard stop. Then it becomes like an 80s, 90s movie. Major plot holes and issues here. It's got the cliche like Schwarzenegger, Stallone explosion where it's fantastic. I laughed out loud. The movie is fun. Okay, there's 3 or 4 secondary characters that were entertaining. I mean, their stories don't necessarily make sense, but at least there's entertainment there. Now, J.K. Simmons plays Chris Pratt's dad, and he's fantastic in every scene. He got really buff for the role, and he's fantastic. He could have been on screen a whole lot more. Okay, so the critics they have some reason to hate on the movie to a certain extent. However, hating on the movie for the right reason is important, right? So this is Reason Magazine. Reason Magazine I don't feel saw the same movie that I saw. Maybe I'm missing something here, right? So their movie they saw, Tomorrow War is a tortured global warming metaphor disguised as a dull action movie. First off, this movie's not dull. Okay, it can be dumb, and it is kind of dumb, but it is not dull. The global warming metaphor has to do with the element at the end of the third act. These creatures evidently had landed back in Chris Pratt's time, like 30-something years ago, in the ice. So therefore they thawed out, and that's why they showed up later on. That's literally the global warming element that they went for. So I want you to read his words. This is a critic. Like, why take the credentials away? This is crazy. All right. I hope you can see. Let me see if I got this shared right, so you cannot see it. Let me make it bigger. There's a little bit bigger. And let me see if I can get it just a little more. All right, I don't know if you can read this with me. So you see, the aliens aren't intelligent because they didn't fly themselves to Earth. Instead, we are probably planet-clearing bioweapons being transported as cargo on a ship that crashed in the Russian tundra hundreds of years ago and were trapped in the ice until climate change thawed the glacier and set them free. Okay, it's factually true, but this is not some global warming lecture piece. That is not valid. Forrester, who's Chris Pratt's character, did you catch that? Forrest, get it? Such a clever writer. Discovers with the help of his volcano-obsessed kid, one of the kids, and it was a funny sequence. It is dumb that they would turn to a kid in high school for this part, but it was literally like who do you know? Do you know somebody? Because no one was helping them. No one was going to approve a mission to Russia when the aliens aren't here yet. It's just a theory. So the government turned them down. No one was going to help them. It's like, do you know anyone who knows anything about volcanoes? Kid uses the internet and had the answer. it's implausible and ridiculous in some ways, but come on. I get it, but obviously there's an agenda here. Now, I will agree with the last part because it says, you see, in the end, it's all about saving the children. And the way to save the children is for today's adults to act now before it's too late, because our future is so precious and blah, blah, blah. So, okay. I mean, that part I can definitely at least relate to at least a little bit, because I thought it was a little ridiculous and actually kind of comical that the Zoomers and millennials couldn't take care of this themselves. They had to get people from our time to do it. That actually kind of made me laugh. It's not that big a deal, but it was something. So there's been a lot of Chris Pratt hate as well. Yeah. So this was another one I thought was just a little. It's just so over the top. No, let me hit the right thing here. Hit you this. This is the big villain is the script, the nonsensical script, which is true in some ways, but again, it's so over the top where they're going with this. He gives it 1 star. Oh man, I cannot get all this nonsense. Stop popping. Their website's terrible. Oh, no wonder it was so slow to open. It will not close. I'm just getting out of all this. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I had it up. Sure didn't want to cooperate. So the blame lies. Where's blame lies? Let me find the right spot because. All right. So the blame lies with the ridiculous plot, the uneven characterization that spoil whatever fun the story offers. Okay, that's not horrible. It's a fair analysis in some ways. And the bizarre stuff that keeps happening, you're meant to take everything at face value. Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the premise of most alien science fiction movies. If you were a self-aware, dumb action movie like, hey, say, the recent Mortal Kombat, the silliness would be more plausible. Okay, now you're getting carried away. Or palatable, sorry. The script wants you to take every daft thing seriously. Seriously, like that's, I don't know. This film is a great escape piece, and I got that, but I don't know. I think the person's being. I think the person is conflating the problems with the story in just the wrong way. This was probably the most appalling of the reviews. Because this is and one example. There are countless examples, by the way. This is the example of the hit piece on Chris Pratt. They've turned on Chris Pratt, right? Because he may not be part of their club. You kind of be part of the Hollywood elite clubs and things like that. And he may not be 100% in line with that. So therefore, they've kind of turned on him a little bit. And this one, it's the ultimate salute to working class heroism. That's how this was worded. Can you believe that? It's just so much disdain. So it comes from this article. He did an interview to Men's Fitness. This is back when he was doing Jurassic World, the sequel to Jurassic World. I don't see personal stories that necessarily resonate with me because they're not my stories. The voice of average blue-collar American isn't necessarily represented in Hollywood. Amen, brother. Amen, brother. It's... Yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything and the disdain of this guy is right there, right? It's I don't know. I don't know. All right, so let me just keep moving through this guy's remarks because this tells it all right here. This is shots from the movie. These guys are great. They were fantastic. This guy's hysterical. Oh my gosh, he was so good. Wait, see him something else is actually better written, but he did a great job. All right. So here's where you can see the agenda of Polygon, of course, is the objective of the Tomorrow War, a movie in which every female, black or POC character plays second fiddle to Dan's strong white guy. Okay, that's not true, by the way. The significant female lead in the character, and I don't want to spoil the twist, is obviously way superior to Dan the whole time. There's a little twist there where Dan holds his own, but that's just ridiculous. There's no POC characters that are female that really matter. So that's what this person's making an objection to. But it's not Chris Pratt's character's fault in that. That's just the way there's other characters. It's these guys that matter. These guys that matter, right? So, all right. So so you see the leftist agenda there. It's all about POC and feminist stuff. He's worthy of more than a stable job and a loving family, right? So again, I want, there's a moment where someone says, thank you for your service or whatever. And it's like, we get it. This average blue collar American is worthy of all your admiration. He's not just some average dude. He was like this military operative who just got out of the military. It's in the opening sequence where he's like, I want to go into research. I didn't want to stay in the military. I didn't want to become a professional contractor or go on police force or whatever. So I don't know. There are funny lines and there are some good moments, but to give this movie and to slam it in the way that they are is just entirely unfair and absurd. And I would recommend having a good time watching it. Don't expect some great film or some incredible, thoughtful film or something that's going to compete with Independence Day or even Edge of Tomorrow. It's in that same vein, but it is not. It's not a very good film in some ways. But in other ways, it's entertaining and it's fun. It's not full of a bunch of woke garbage. It's not full of a bunch of agendas and things like that. Global warming stuff is really, really reaching, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's not the message that is kind of there, but it is not presented in that way. It's not even carved out in that way. So that's insane. I don't know. I'd recommend checking it out. I'm talking about like a 2.5, 2-star kind of movie. We're not talking about a great film, but it's at least worthy of some time, and at least it's entertaining. That guy that's talking about how it's dull, that critic is out of their mind. Tomorrow War is never dull. It can be dumb, but not dull. So, all right. So I don't see any comments. Take a break from my unofficial sponsor. That's right. I'm off the Coke. That's right. Dr. Pepper, zero sugar. You're not paying me for this, but oh, how I love thee. Oh, yes. Thank you. Highly recommend the Pepper Zero. One person was chatting me privately. Don't need to respond to that right now. But I will say, it's okay to message me and tell me if you have some suggestions for a movie you want reviewed or something like that. That's fine too. All right. So the last thing I wanted to do is touch on, we will not run a full hour. I definitely am got a lot of extra time here. Is again, going back to what's happened over the last year or so, one of the things that happened was all of the collectible industries changed, right? So if you're into comic books at all, you're going to appreciate this. And if you're not, probably not your thing. Maybe you got comic books or know someone that is, I'd be happy to help you, because what changed was during that time, the Michael Jordan documentary came out and people got kind of nostalgic and was into their sports cards, and people would grade sports cards. And if you had a perfect one, it became in high demand. And they realized that 80s, 90s era of stuff was in very short supply in the perfect format, which is a PSA 10. Okay. So for sports cards, that's what it was. So that stuff is booming. Fast forward. So that's happening for like 6 to 8 months. So fast forward about the first of the year, and I have an alert on my phone about how Marvel cards have soared in value. And I'm like, wow, I own a lot of these Marvel cards. Maybe some of mine are. Next thing you know, this market's taken off, and I realize the same thing is happening with comic books. Same thing is going on in that arena too. And I have to decide. I've messaged some people. It's like, listen, if you have some of these comic books, getting them graded, it can be expensive and timely. It's hard. You have to ship them away. So the company is called CGC. They're actually in Sarasota, down here in Florida. You ship your comic books in, and they certify them. So let me explain how that works. So let me give you an example of one that's not graded. This is a Spawn issue. As you can see, it's not graded. It's an open book bag, right? Not necessarily worth a lot. This is a pretty common Spawn issue, a few dollars, because it is pretty cool to look at, but it's not graded. So let's say I was going to sell the comic book to you. I say, all right, well, it's near mint, so it's worth, $10. And you're like, well, no, I see this little ding. I see a little white right here. It's this. I'm going to pay you $5, right? So to kind of cut out the middleman, and for preservation reasons, you can ship your comic books off, and they come back certified. So this is one that's certified. It comes back. This is how they come back, actually. They come back in plastic, just like this, and they get certified, right? So now the comic book is in this hard case. I have it in a plastic bag too. But it's in a hard case. It's certified. Up here, it talks about the comic book. It talks about some information in it. This is a Ghost Rider comic book with X-Men, and it's now a 9.8. So there's no debate. Like, so you can say, all right, well, this is how it is. And there's kind of an easier market that once they're graded to follow what the prices are on something compared to something that is not graded. The term a lot of people will use is raw. So it's ungraded. So you'd ship them off and have these things done. So you're talking about exponential curve, right? So every little tiny mark, every little thing can change this score. Score is very, very sensitive, right? So imagine a book that's raw, but let's say it's just regular. And someone will say, well, the regular is around a 9.0. So 8 to 9.0 would be very fine to near mint. So that means from 9 all the way up to a 10, which would be a gem mint, which there are no 9.9s and 10s for almost every book. There's a few exceptions to that rule, but you're not going to find those. And when you do find those, I make a joke about unicorns. You found a unicorn. But the price exponential is crazy, right? So for a comic book, even a comic book like this one, like I showed you, let's say this comic book, you can get this comic book for a few bucks, a few dollars. And it may not be mint, right? But it just a couple dollars, right? Let's say this score is 9 or lower. You're barely making any money on the cost of doing this. $20, maybe $30 the most, because it costs that much to get them graded, depending on when they had it graded, right? So it'd be a few dollars. But you get to something like this where it's been graded high, you're talking about a curve where even on the low end of $60 to $100 for that book, but you won't find graded books, even in 9.8, less than about $60 to $75 to ship them. So massive curve. But you get to a 9.8 of key issues or first appearances. So you're talking about, okay, hundreds of dollars gaps every step up to that 9.8. And then the 9.8s can be so rare, you know, thousands of dollars. So that's what went crazy. The market went bonkers, nuts. So for the first time, the old man, I've set comic book. I've had comic books. I've been seriously collecting when the Michael Keaton Batman movie came out. That's when I really got serious. I had a friend of mine, and Blake, if you ever watch this, you get the credit for turning me down that rabbit hole, man. I started reading graphic novels of different. I went to like a Walden Books, I believe, at a mall and bought, you know, Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns and Year One, Elektra, Frank Miller stuff, Elektra Assassin and Daredevil stuff. I down the rabbit hole I went. I've been collecting. And then there's some pauses there. I kind of had the little flea market booth and flip stuff for a while. Went through some different phases in my life where got rid of some stuff, didn't get rid of some stuff, something like that. So, but sadly, got a lot. So I've been really trying to do that. And that's been a large part, too, of things that have been going on that kept me from filming, because it is a time-consuming process just to gather it all together, secure it, and then decide how to ship them. You know, I found a great person that can help me, like, prepare them for shipping and sending them in, things like that. So that's been a large part, too. But if you're interested in the CGC process, you have questions for me, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to try to help you, answer your questions that you have, give you some guidance or whatever. If you have some books that you want someone here in the Tampa area to look at, I'm more than happy to try to figure out a way to schedule time and meet you up, give you some advice. But there's people probably in your area, tons of YouTubers out there too, that do a great job. Reggie Collects has got an amazing channel. Really enjoy his stuff on comic books. But there's other guys that talk about it, not so much grading as much, but talk about comic books, because I've been back down the rabbit hole of the new comic books, and the same thing we're seeing with the movies we've had in comic books now for the last couple of years, where it's become a lot more about intersectional politics, and there's like racist and segregation and feminism and all this stuff's taking root in the comic books, and it's overshadowed just telling decent stories. And it's been shocking. I've seen stuff I didn't believe. I gotta be honest. I did not believe the YouTuber. They tell you what's in a story, and I wouldn't believe them, and I'd go look it up for myself. So it's crazy. So anyway, I guess I can kind of wrap up here soon. Let me know what you're interested in, what your thoughts are on Loki, Black Widow, Tomorrow War, comic books, not comic books, grading, not grading, that kind of thing. So I've had a good time trying to get back into this. I'm learning, as you've been seeing me kind of clunky, try to play with the software here and sharing screens. Think I've got it figured out enough to have someone on as a guest. So I may do that and be able to have someone join me, and I think that'll be a lot more fun to have someone doing that. That was a lot more complicated to do with the old setup. And I don't have the old setup. Obviously, I have a blank wall behind me. And I am grateful, though. This is I'm at my dad's house. It's wonderful and peaceful and quiet. I have no issues there. But I don't really have my normal Pops background and my normal place. And that room is in chaos right now with the amount of comic books and cards I have set out everywhere, stuff coming and going to the grading company. And my poor wife, she's such a kind heart and tolerating a nerd like me and all my nonsense. So anyway, feel free to reach out. Hopefully you'll see clips of this broken up, and I appreciate your time, and hopefully I'll talk to you again next week.